Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 11th episode of Kouryer podcast. Today I'm here with Mariana Salimena based in Stockholm. She's a concept artist at Mojang. Well, I think all of you know what Mojang is famous for, Minecraft. And so if anyone's interested in that, this episode is going to be an interesting one. With that out of the way, would you please give us a little introduction on how you got into visual arts and design?
Yes, of course. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. And sorry for sometimes I pronounce some English words wrong. So let's get it out of the way. My art career, my art interest always existed. Ever since I was a little kid, I was always drawing. And briefly, I kind of left that aside for a while when I was in college, because my first college was in law. So I actually went to law school, and then I dropped out and I went back into art school. And after that, I was always kept working with that in different roles. But I, again, always had this interest, and just for a brief moment, I left that aside, but then I was like, no, this is part of what I really love, this is what's in my heart, so that's what I should stick to.
Were you, as you said earlier, that you were not originally studying art and design, you were studying law, and that aside, was the first career path you were pursuing was art related, or was it related to something else, then turned into art? After that.
Do you mean before I went to law school or after that? Okay. So as soon as I entered art school, everything I did afterwards was related to art. I started with internship as an intern, and I worked first in a video production studio, and I was doing more illustration related work at that time. And then I went full freelance. So I worked as a freelance illustrator for many years. And after that, I was more working in the editorial market at the time. And then after that, I started getting more interested in the game development and in the games industry. So after that, I started pursuing this path that took me to concept art role that I have today.
Right now, what is your main branch of design that you're focusing on? And tell us about your experience from the start until now. We know that right now you're working on concept art for video games, but to be more specific about it, could you please explain this to our audience?
Yes. Yes, of course. So now my biggest focus is concept art, which is the role I have. And concept art is a lot about art, of course, but it's even more about communicating ideas and helping other people communicate and visualize their ideas. So aside your artistic skills, your artistic preferences, there's also a big layer of visual communication. So the way you deal with symbols and the way you communicate with other people, as in teamwork. This is also a big part of that. And at least in the games industry, the concept art role, we are always bouncing around many different tasks and teams. And we're kind of the big glue that connects a lot of different roles and crafts together. So it's a very challenging job. But it's a very fun job as well. But I think that the biggest misconception that exists about concept art is that it's only about pretty pictures. It is, of course, there's always a layer of the art and visuals to it. But the biggest layer underneath all that is communicating ideas
and next question.
And visualizing ideas.
How does your design process usually go anytime you want to sketch out or start working on a design project?
So like today, because I have been working with art for many, many years now, I have a bit more of a linear process. When it's good, always good to remind people that in the beginning it's usually a bit more erratic. You sometimes work in a certain way, but today my process is usually start with research or like a briefing if I am working on a feature with a team or a designer. So first part is never like with the pencil in the paper. It's always like something that you're sitting, researching. I often make mood boards, so mood board making is a big part of my process. And in this moment, I'm looking a little bit at different sides of what I'm gonna do. So design is one side, light is another side, color is another side, atmosphere. So I usually break down these in different mood boards. And if I need to get some inspiration from real life, then I usually do a little bit of research. So I can be reading about something. Maybe I'm inspired by, I don't know, like a weird insect that I saw or a tropical fruit that I thought was interesting. So I always read a little bit about that. And once I have the idea a bit more clear in my mind, so like this part is happening inside my brain, and when I feel like this is clear enough, I start sketching something on paper or like digitally. In the sketch moment, it starts with a slice of time where you're just like letting it loose a bit, so it's a warm up stage. And once you're warmed up, then I start sketching and solving the problem that I'm there to solve. Sometimes I also write this problem that I'm solving. For example, if I'm drawing a character, this is the problem I'm solving, like this character design, and what I want and what the team wants to communicate with such a character design. And then I start just like iterating and exploring as many different possible directions. So it's very important not to lock yourself down in one idea from scratch. So this moment's all about like variety and iterations. After like sketching a lot of ideas, I get those that stick, those that I feel like there's something there, I can develop further on that, and then I give those like a second pass because my sketches are usually very loose, very scribbly. So I choose my favorite ones and then I give like a second pass to them. And this is usually the moment that I get other teammates involved. So I can call a designer or even like go to an art director and show that. And then like after getting this feedback, I'm gonna like incorporate some of the feedback and iterate a bit more on these pieces. And to finalize, I'm gonna like give them a very brief polish pass, but it's gonna be very brief because there's not a lot of time to be like polishing, and that's like where it's. If I would polish a lot, it would become an illustration. If I give it just a little bit of love
All
and care,
right,
it's more concept art.
will you tell us about will you tell us a bit about your professional work? I mean, your professional career, basically. What were you doing before Mojang, and how did the opportunity arise to work there? I mean, that's going to be interesting to hear.
Yeah, yes, of course. So just like before I got to this role, I'm originally from Brazil, so I was living in Brazil and working freelance, and I moved to Sweden to study game development. So I came here to study in a school that's called Future Games, and they have a lot of game development related programs there. And I joined the 2D graphics program. So it is a lot about game development, but it was more focused on the 2D side of it. So it kind of covered from concept art to game art, texturing, a little bit of everything. And part of my education is a mandatory internship. And here in Sweden, in Stockholm, there's a lot of game studios here. It's a big industry. And I had the wonderful opportunity to make my internship at Mojang. It was like it was luck involved, but also like skill, of course. But it just happened that they were willing to experiment having a concept artist in the studio, because before I joined, they haven't had any before. And I was searching for a concept art related internship. So it was like a very win-win situation. And my internship there lasted for 6 months on average. And after this period, I got hired because the experience was very successful for
All
both
right.
of us.
And on to the next question. Who are your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most?
Mm-hmm. Oh man, that's a difficult question. I think like I have a lot of different, how can I explain this, waves of inspiration. So like some artists always stick with me, but I'm always like discovering new artists, and like not always the inspiration come from art. But I think like from the masters, I really love Hieronymus Bosch. I think that's his name, which was like an artist that was doing some crazy stuff very early on. So I think it was very bold, and I always like his images always stick to my brain. Artemisia, I think this is how to say her name in English, was like one of the first female artists, and she has like an incredible story besides having like wonderful paintings, of course. So she definitely comes as like one of my favorite inspiration from the masters. I think a all-time favorite for any concept artist is Sargent. I think that's what's his name, because it's like a lot of cool, loose brush strokes that create like a very good result. Like it's a very elegant brush stroke work. And more of the modern times, a huge inspiration comes from Adventure Time, of course, like one of my favorite animation shows ever. And I really like, there's a lot of inspiration that comes from this funny, a bit ugly, and like having a sense of humor when you're drawing, which makes you like don't take yourself too seriously. I have a lot of that, and that comes directly from Adventure Time. And lately, I have been like reading more and more comics and manga. So I have a lot of inspiration coming from the works of Satoshi Kon, which is the artist behind Perfect Blue, the animated movie, but he also has like some wonderful comics. And of course, Akira comics and all those like more classics, manga, those are like huge influence on me right now. I think this is a good selection of artists.
Really interesting
that
choice
me.
of inspirations all over the board, which is actually pretty awesome. How to simplify the start of the learning process for anyone who wants to get started in concept art or, you know, 2D art?
I think like now I have been teaching a lot of people. I have been having more of a teaching experience, and the issue I see with most people that are just beginning is that they want to cover everything. They want to learn everything at the same time. And they kind of want everything to happen quick, which is like it doesn't happen. I know everyone has this anxiety that I really want to learn everything. I want to be able to like draw like this and paint like that. But it's as soon as you realize that this is something that takes time, the better it is, because then you can see and learn things in your own speed, at your own speed. So I think this is a mindset that is always good to have when you go to an art career and art learning. And I think it's very important for you to start with the fundamentals. They are the building blocks of anything you're gonna do in the next level. And when I say fundamentals, I mean like just basics like perspective, drawing, learning a bit about color, the basic shapes, how to light them. So it's like a lot about starting with the basics, and then you can like progress slowly to the next tier of studies. Because, for example, if you want to draw, especially if you want to draw like more from imagination, a character, for example, there's a lot of knowledge that is behind that for you to build that up. So you would oftentimes start with like just a construction. So you would need to know a little bit about perspective, how to draw like basic shapes in perspective, a little bit about anatomy, proportions. So there's a lot of like these building blocks that happens when you see a very cool image. So definitely start with the fundamentals and attack one of them at a time. So you're never gonna be feeling overwhelmed. Another good practice that I could say is setting up like more realistic goals. So instead of sitting to study, I'm just gonna draw the most complex environment ever, or I'm gonna paint a realistic portrait. Those are very difficult tasks. You could instead make more achievable goals. So maybe it's about like filling up a sheet with ellipses in perspective. That's totally achievable, and that's like an art workout that is going to really pay off in the future. So setting up achievable goals and having people, other artists to talk about it. Like you can do it online, you can do it with friends. If you're part of an art school, you're gonna have like your art peers there. But it's very important to have people to talk about it and to be able to like show your work, ask questions that you're having trouble with. This is like really, really important to build up more confidence and also to build up this more teamwork side of things. And for the concept art side of things, it's not exactly something like as a practice, but I would suggest people to become very curious about the world, everything around you. Like, be curious about how things work. Why does our brain understand something instantly when you look at it? Like, what is the visual information there that is helping you understand information? And again, for the concept art side of things, communication skills is always very good to build. And this is like the easiest one, just talking to people, get used to teamwork. Participating on game jams is also like great to have this experience or like quick iteration. And get inspiration from everywhere. Like, don't lock yourself in a single source of inspiration, because might make you tunnel vision a bit.
All right, and so actually I wanted to dedicate a part of the recording of this episode of podcast to talk a little bit about Minecraft. So was when you got an internship at Mojang, was Minecraft the first project you got assigned to? Or?
So it's when I joined at Mojang, I spent a few days being kind of like mentored by my art lead. And I was all the time involved with Minecraft. So I think all the time until today, I was mostly involved with Minecraft and Minecraft dungeons. Those are the two main areas that I worked there. So yeah, like ever since day one, was all about blocks.
All right, and have you personally tried the game? Did you actually play it?
Oh yes,
on a
yes.
regular?
We have a server at Mojang, like employee server, so I play on a weekly basis in this server. We have our own little village there. So most of us actually play together at least one time per week. We are there in this server playing together. And sometimes I play with my friends as well, like the non-mojang related friends. And we have our little server as well. But I have been playing more with the co-workers now.
That sounds amazing, actually. That sounds really fun. And, well, I mean, I'm going to post the link to your profile and also your website in the captions, but I wanted to ask, because I wanted to ask something about that. I have an assumption. I'm seeing a lot of axolotl pictures. I was wondering, are you the designer in charge of the graphics of the axolotls?
So the axolotls was a joined effort between a lot of people, and the idea started in one of the brainstorms. So like axolotl was one of those ideas that everyone felt was perfect for Minecraft because it is cute and ugly, which is like something that happens most of the time with Minecraft assets. And then we started discussing a little bit more, like there were designers, of course, like the gameplay designers involved, the pixel artists, the 3D artists, and me. And of course, our art director. So this group of people kind of worked together. And I was there to help a little bit with iterating, like let's see how this axolotl could look in the Minecraft style. And we had like some design, some ideas, and then like I gave this to the 3D artist. He played around a bit with that, and then showed me. We're always showing each other, and then sometimes we sat to see the prototype, to see like how it would work in game. And this also like feeds me some more inspiration because I can see how is the personality of this character. And then we tried a few colors idea, because we have like some different colors. Some are a little bit more common, others are rare. So I also helped with that, seeing which kinds of patterns they could have, which kinds of colors they could have. And then I just delivered everything to the team and they made the axolotl as we have today in the game. And I also remember we had like a lot of discussion on how the legs would look like. I know I have drawn so many axolotl legs, but it was like a fun exploration. This happens a lot because the Minecraft style is very specific. So we have to try a lot until we reach something that looks good, has the personality, but also is fitting inside the Minecraft universe.
All right, and actually, two things I need to mention. The reason right now we're having Miss Salimena on the podcast is because I saw her work on the live stream of the 1.17 Caves and Cliffs update of the Minecraft YouTube channel. And there's that. And also, I wanted to ask something else. Have you, like, it's really interesting that Minecraft, when in its heyday, when it started, like, of course, it had a rising popularity, then it had a dip, for a couple of years. But then, like, since last year, 2 years, like YouTubers like PewDiePie, like, really helped the dream. I don't know if you watch their content, but they really helped in the popularity of the game right now. With the speedrunning and different series, and it also right now has a nostalgia factor to it. And I was wondering, what is your opinion on this whole resurgence of Minecraft and
well, I think that like a big part of this resurgence comes also from like the updates that we are making. So like, for example, the Nether update, which was like one of the most recent big updates. I think this is like both the updates and the snapshot system. There has been a lot of very cool and creative features being filled into the game on a constant basis. And the latest updates, they have been feeling like a lot of new content that not only new stuff, but like content that creates like thousands of new possibilities in the game. So I think this is like one of the biggest reasons why Minecraft is a game where like a lot of people return to it, even if it's like if you don't play for a while, there are new reasons to return to it very often. And also now, like especially in this situation of a lockdown and working from home, it kind of became a good opportunity to meet friends again. So even when I was in school here, this happened a lot over my life, where you have a Minecraft server with your friends, and it's just like one of the. It's always a good experience. It never gets boring, and I think this is a reason why it's such a cyclical experience. That even if you don't play for a while, there's always something fresh, new, and fun to do, whether it comes from new features, new updates, or if it comes from like just your friends feeling like doing that and you embark on a new adventure with them. But of course, I think like the community, Minecraft and the community is something that is like, it's so close together. You can't even think about them as a separate thing anymore. I don't follow that much of like what the community is doing, but I know that especially the vanilla game team, they are very, very close to the community. So I think this is also like being this close and like making the game with the community. This is also like something really, really cool that I think it's also responsible for the game like reliving.
Yes, and any advice or tips for a good portfolio and resume for an artist based on your experience?
Yes, sure. So portfolio. I very recently gave a portfolio course to an artist's class. And I think my biggest takeaways about portfolio is there's always those like more important things that you have to check, which is basically showing only your best work. I know this is like super cliche, but it's actually like some of the most important things. Showing only your best work. It's very important that your portfolio is consistent. And I know this is so difficult when you're starting because beginner artists, they have a lot of different interests. Not only beginners, but like even veteran artists, we have a lot of different interests. But it's, as I say, it's always good to have a threshold. Like, so maybe you don't need to explore the full range of like everything that you could ever do in art, but you can have your own personal threshold of like diverse things that you like, and you can put that in your portfolio. But I would avoid going the full range, like the super cute and stylized to the full gritty and realistic. So having a range there in between, it's always a good thing. I also think it's really cool to really understand what is it that you want to do, like which kind of role you want to have, and present that in your portfolio. Because, for example, if you apply for a concept art role and you only have illustration in your portfolio, it's going to be difficult for whoever is analyzing your portfolio to see how is your process. Because like your work is more about your process in concept art than about the final result. So in your portfolio, I would appreciate more to see the process than only the final result, which is a bit different if you're applying for an illustration job, for example, where, yes, it's important to show your process, but the final product is the thing. So you can research more about the role. If you have doubts, you can always reach to someone that works in that role that you want to have, and ask them like about their work, what they would like to see. People are usually very open. I answer a lot of emails that ask me this question. Another thing that is super important is showing your portfolio to your art friends and even non-art friends to get some feedback. It's gonna prepare you, make you more comfortable about sharing your work and like showing this to other people, because I know a lot of artists, they are shy, or sometimes they're a bit scared to show their things. So you can start with like a couple of art friends to get some feedback, and then you're gonna be more comfortable to share this with other people. And looking at other portfolios, both from like very experienced artists, but also from junior artists, is very good, because when you are in the enter level, we oftentimes compare us with like the people, the super veterans, and of course our skill level might not be on that like super god mode level. So it's always good to see junior artists portfolio as well, because that's a little bit closer to the range that you are when you're beginning. And if you have specific interests in certain studios, you can always research and try to find the artists that work there and look at their portfolios, because that's gonna like give you an overall idea of what they are doing, how they are working, and you can try to like make your work lean a bit closer into that direction. And I think one last tip is about how you present your work. This is also something I see a lot of beginner artists struggling. Most of the times you have very good pieces, but the way those pieces are presented might not be the best and most flattering way. So you can look at more professional artists' portfolios and see how they are presenting their work, and you can try to create your own interpretation of that with your own pieces, because that way is going to assure you are presenting it on the best way possible. I think those are most of the tips, but if you ever like feel like you're struggling with portfolio, reach out to an artist. I'm sure they're gonna have time to like give you feedback and help you.
I'm sure the advice and tips you just said is going to be super helpful to a lot of people, because they were like spot on advice. They were like perfect. And the next question, what are you working on right now that you can tell us about? Like what type of project
so
is
at
it?
Mojang right now, I'm working a lot on the Caves and Cliffs update. With like most of the features that we showed on the live video. And I have been helping out a lot in the Dungeons team as well, with the latest DLCs and upcoming DLCs. So I think this is like the most that I have been doing now. But unfortunately, there's a lot of parts that I can't say. So I'm trying to like navigate it without saying anything that I can't. But yeah, I think those two projects are the main ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely understandable, and I wasn't expecting you to say so, because of course there's contracts. Yeah. Yeah. And what area beside what you're working on right now are you interested to explore and learn in the future?
So right now, my main interest, like I'm actually re-studying anatomy all over again, because I feel like I never had the opportunity to like really study. So I'm kind of like backtracking a little bit and reviewing my fundamentals knowledge now that I have a bit more time. And I think for the future, I am really, really interested both in animation and comic books. So I'm definitely leaning a bit more towards those areas. like I always wanted to study animation before I started like working in game development. So maybe this is definitely like one of the interests that I would like to pursue very soon, and perhaps try to like make a small comic project. This could be something as well. But unfortunately, all my interests are all related to art and like studying art, but mostly leaning to those two areas right now.
All right, and we have come to the last question, which is not question section, kind of. With all that being said and done, to conclude all we discussed, give us a roadmap for someone who's zero in visual arts and wants to get to the place you are in terms of skill set, like where to start, best tools, softwares, preferred books, anything, courses, anything
Yes,
that
of
could come to your
course.
mind.
So, like, if you are a complete beginner, I think it's, as I said, it's always good to start with the fundamentals. A lot of people ask me about should I go to art school? Can I do it by myself? And of course, this is like a super complex question. I went to art school, but in Brazil, where I come from and where I went to art school, I went to a public school. So it means it doesn't have the whole like student debt thing involved. So I know this is like a very important layer to take in account. But I had a really good experience in art school, not only because of the skill of like learning skills, but because you get to learn like art history and like visual communication principles, and you are usually in a room full of other art people, and this is always a great place to be. It's like in a room with 30 people, there's always going to be like everyone's going to be good in something different. So you're basically like a super powerful art person together. So art school is definitely something to look into, but of course, like make sure you go through all these other sides of it. And I would suggest anything that's like beginner related. I think Control Paint, it was a YouTube channel, but I think now they have like a website. They have a lot of good beginner courses. Schoolism is a platform, a learning platform that you can pay a subscription, which is not very expensive. And they also have a very good selection that starts from very like basic drawing, and then it goes to more advanced courses. I use until today Michael Hampton's figure drawing book. So it's a great place to start if you're interested in learning more about figure drawing, anatomy. Most of my colleagues learned perspective using Scott Robertson's book, How to Draw. I personally did not have the best experience ever there, but it's a great introductory to advanced perspective book. Something that I do and that I suggest a lot of people doing is studying. If you're interested, if you're getting more into like the painting side, when you get more to the painting side, it's always good to start learning how to paint the primitive shapes like spheres, cubes, and how light behaves with them. And there's a very easy way to make your own exercises with answers is just using Blender. So you can create your very simple 3D scenes with a very simple light setup, and you can render this without light, so only lines, and you can render this with light. So you can get this unlit version and try to paint. And when you finish, you can compare a bit with your rendered version. So you can basically create your own painting exercises with Blender. I think Blender is actually like a very good software. Even if you're interested in painting and drawing, it's always a good place to make your experiments there. You can like draw put cubes and like spheres and anything like cylinders in the scene, see how it behaves in perspective, play around with camera lenses, see how what the distortions make with the shapes, play with lights, see how like different lights have different results in the shapes, color, anything. So it's basically experiment area, your visual lab. So this is always good. And reach out to more experienced artists, and if they have like some time, ask them what courses would they recommend. But it's like the most important thing is starting with the basic steps, the simple things, and then you advance and like move your way up into something more advanced. This is the most important thing. And if you need any tips, you can reach out to me. I can like send a bit more of like books and courses that I have watched. But those tips that I gave were basically the way I made into where I am right now.
All right, I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us on the 11th episode. And if you guys had any questions regarding the content of the podcast, you can always DM the Kouryer podcast page. And also, I'm gonna put her ID in the captions as well. So feel free to message her, as she said herself. And that's it. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.